Hey, tough and the out of this world story from Street Travel. There are ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back in Street Travel. I am your host Manir.
Story 1. Update: Am I the a-hole for avoiding my childhood friend after she called me a beggar for living in my ex-husband's house? Original post: My 29 female ex-husband Carter, 27 male, and divorced almost 4 years ago. He divorced me. I was blindsided because I thought we had a very happy marriage. Unfortunately, this year, I was in a hit and run and was hospitalized. My insurance didn't cover much, and they never found out who did it. I drained my savings. I couldn't live in my apartment anymore since I could no longer physically walk up 5 flights of stairs. I had a job but was let go. I was struggling, and it was a low point in my life. Carter and I hadn't kept in touch, but he contacted me and said that I could live in one of his spare rooms. I had no other options. I offered to pay him rent, but he refused. He was a maid for chores. I cooked for him sometimes. It's okay, he's very chatty and bubbly, and if I close my eyes I can pretend we're friends again, and we never took the leap into a relationship and a divorce. My childhood friend Claire called me to express sympathies that I couldn't find a place. I told her that I was living with Carter. She insisted on coming over as she had also been friends with him and refused to take a side. When she arrived, Claire started to talk about how this was a bad situation. She asked me if I paid rent, and I told her no. She said that his pity would end and asked if I wanted to be a beggar for the rest of my life. I told her I wasn't a beggar. She would tell all her friends. I pleaded with her not to. Claire then said that if I didn't think that what I was doing was wrong, I wouldn't have cared if she told everyone. I feel humiliated and ashamed, and I have been avoiding her. She called me yesterday and said that I was being childish and emotionally manipulative for behaving that way. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole, your friend Claire is a busybody and is sticking her nose into your business where it does not belong. Her words were cruel and judgmental and likely inaccurate. You need to limit your contact with her and not feel that you have to defend your choices to anyone except yourself. Op says, I'm not trying to be a beggar. I've offered to pay. I would do chores and clean, but he has a housekeeping service. He eats takeout often, but he hasn't turned down any dishes I've offered him. That's the only way that I can thank him. This person says, if Claire is so concerned about you living with your ex, why isn't she offering to help you out? Instead of cutting you down and trying to make you think that this is a bad decision, she should be helping you. The only person being emotionally manipulative is Claire. IMHO if your friends are being judgmental about your situation, and they aren't offering other options, then they really aren't very good friends. OP, don't worry about other people's options in your current situation. They can't possibly understand unless they've gone through a similar situation. Just take care of yourself, heal, and continue to do your best to appreciate your ex for his generosity. P.S. You're not a beggar. You're a human in a difficult situation, and someone that actually cares about you offered to help you in your time of need. OP says she believes in everyone working hard for themselves and not asking for handouts. She said that she would help me look for an apartment or pass along my request for an apartment at ground level, but that's the extent of the help. I have tried to show my appreciation for Carter, and he's happy to hear it. He's told me I can stay for as long as I'd like or forever, but I can't wait to save up and find an apartment that I can live in. He is too close and too affectionate with me. There's a part of me that still loves him, and he keeps poking those parts of my heart. Now for the update. Update. A couple of days after my post, Claire reached out and apologized for using harsh words. I accepted her apology, but things were still uncomfortable for me. She said that she found an apartment that I could live in. It was on the first floor and had access to public transportation. The rent was high, but not out of my budget. I would be living there with 3 other people in the apartment. I checked it out, and it was acceptable. I told Carter Claire had found an apartment for me, and he flipped out. He said I couldn't live there because it was a dangerous part of town. We discussed it and came to a compromise. He would feel better if we went to a hotel in the area for a few days and see how dangerous it was. It was fine for the first few days, but one morning a man followed me. It was frightening. Carter said it was proof the area wasn't safe. I told him this was the only option I had for now unless I wanted to go back to my parents' house and find a new job there or sleep on friends' couches. My parents live in a developing country and I don't speak the language well, so that is my last resort. Carter reminded me that he said I could stay as long as I'd like. I told him I didn't want to be a burden on him anymore. It was very kind of him to offer, but I can't take advantage of his kindness indefinitely. He said Clara was putting thoughts in my head. I offered to pay him rent again, and he finally agreed, but he'd deliberately waste rent money on silly things to prove a point. I told him that, but he said if I didn't like it, I could stop paying or pay him another way. I dropped the conversation. Claire asked me why I hadn't moved into the apartment. I said I was paying rent to Carter, and she cheered me out. Claire and Carter's social circles overlapped, so Carter found out about how Claire was saying I chose to stay there even when she found me a new place to live. He got into an argument with me and said that I should stop talking to Claire. He made an ultimatum of him or Claire. I chose him. Since then he's been very happy. I'm happy to see how cheerful he is, but I can't handle the constant hugs or snuggles or pinching. It makes me feel bad and dredges up bad thoughts. I feel inadequate and crushed because he may be able to be platonic friends with me, but I still haven't gotten past the hurt. On a positive note, I started physical therapy and signed up for a free counseling program through my work. I have a tight budget, so I have to make do. Story 2. My 27 male family wants me to break up with my girlfriend, female 22, after she responded to my brother's 22 male prank plus update. Original post. Hi, long-time lurker, first-time poster. I know how the title sounds, but I could honestly use some outside perspective since anyone else I could ask is biased towards the situation. I have been dating my girlfriend Lola for about 2 years now and overall things have been great. My brother Ian has always been pretty weird whenever she comes up or is around. Ian and I are very close, talking to each other daily, but the conversation will usually change gears right as I start talking about anything Lola related. I thought maybe he was jealous at the time, or I was spending time with her and maybe a little crush on her. Still, whenever we'd get together, he'd make comments about her age gap, poke fun at me for simping, and joke about her sleep disorder. Ian's always enjoyed a good prank, either pranking or being pranked. He loves to laugh, and I genuinely believe that when he goes to prank people, he means it in a way to share the laughter. When he's tried to pull little pranks on Lola though, he does things that he figured out triggers her disorder, like making sudden loud noises, jumping out to scare her, and one time I caught him before he was going to do the shaving cream sleep bit while she was taking a nap in the guest room. I warned him in more detail then that he shouldn't mess with her while she's sleeping as interrupting her regulated cycles isn't good for her, and at the absolute best, she's the worst kind of cranky when she's woken up. Ian looked like he understood and I thought that was that. I threw a night party a few days ago and invited Ian and a bunch of mine and Lola's friends. Everyone was having a good time. My watch went off when the alarm was set for Lola to take a nap. She went off with a sleepy smile. I kept partying. A while later we all heard a scream, followed soon after by cussing and something breaking. I panicked. The woman was from my room where Lola was and I ran through, nearly kicking the door down to find that she shoved someone down and was yelling at them. I looked to see who it was and saw a spider mask that I unfortunately recognized as Ian's from years ago. I saw him scrambling to get away, but she only stopped when 3 of her friends pushed past me to pull her up and check her before she ultimately passed out in their arms. Ian scrambled off the floor and ripped the mask off, revealing the work she managed to do and the time it took us to react. He started bawling, telling me that she was insane and abusive, that he only wanted to make sure she wasn't going to sleep through the ball drop. At this point, everyone started yelling. Ian looked terrified and kept repeating that she was crazy and that I shouldn't be with someone who could do this to her boyfriend's brother. Some of my guys were yelling that if she did it to him, she could do it to me. All of her friends were screaming about how he should know to leave a sleeping girl alone and how creepy it was. Ian ended up calling her mom to tell him that Lola hurt him and she's furious. Lola's friends ended up carrying her out against my protests and my friends were nearly split down the middle. I remember standing there while everyone argued while the ball dropped. My mother called me for the 10th time and Lola finally texted me that she needs space to think. Since then, we've lightly texted. She's expressed that she can't shake her fear of what happened, but she still hasn't told me from her side what happened. Ian and my mom were trying to convince me to break up with her and chastising me for not helping or standing up for my brother when he was being assaulted, also demanding an apology for not playing my part as an older brother. Ian has FaceTimed a few other family members and now my aunt, who paid for both of our colleges and the house my mom and brother live in and helped me get an apartment, is taking the 3-hour drive up to make sure boys are okay, which is stressing me out even more. On the one hand, I know family is family and I should do what I can to stand up for the people who helped raise me and become the person that I am. On the other hand, Lola is my girlfriend. I adore her. I love her. I feel like I should be there to protect her. I don't want to push her boundaries, but not talking to her is a different kind of hurt. Ian is convinced that he was doing a well-intentioned prank and was wrongfully punished for wanting to make sure everyone was enjoying themselves. I don't know if I believe that, but I've known Ian for 22 years. Growing up, we were inseparable. I don't want to doubt him just because love may be blinding me. How do I approach the situation with Lola? How can I convince my family that Lola isn't a threat? She honestly is the most sweet and caring person. She just can't be woken up and part of me feels like she was pushed to that point. Now for the update. To everyone who has reached out to me with advice on how I can learn from this SHT storm, thank you. To everyone that has helped me understand that just because family has done a lot for you, it does not mean you are indebted to them and can't have an opinion or life of my own, thank you. To everyone that has reached out to me telling me that I'm such an ISCK as a boyfriend, they hope Lola leaves me, they wish she would beat both of us up, thank you. This won't be a full update as a lot happened yesterday, and I frankly don't have time to get into everything with police and packing to deal with. In short, while a lot of you advised I wait for Lola to tell me for her side before I confront my family, they all came over to my apartment yesterday morning while I was writing out a list of questions for them. I was supposed to go over the night before, but I texted them saying I needed time and if we could meet later today, but they obviously didn't like that and showed up unannounced. The fighting started almost immediately, and I was initially thrown off by them being there, but I matched energy and I started yelling back at them for their predatory and enabling behavior of Ian and how I couldn't believe they'd side with him over this. Golden rainbow baby aside. My aunt got in my face about disrespect while my mom cried and my brother cast me out. But I pointed at my computer and yelled back at them that if they genuinely believed Lola was the problem, then they were victim-blaming idots that I wanted nothing more to do with. My mom kept crying after I got my aunt's attention with the computer and she got close to look at the screen. I was going through the comments to write up all the questions and after a minute she turned back to us, really my brother, and said, "What is this?" I explained and that I'd posted for help. Ian then stopped comforting mom and pushed past me to get to the computer asking what right I had sharing family business on the internet. My aunt stopped him and asked, "Why didn't you tell us you were alone with her? You never told me she was sleeping." To say all hell broke loose would be an understatement. Like a switch, my mom almost immediately stopped loudly crying and looked over at my aunt confused. Ian started shaking his head and reiterating his version of the story, which, listening to it, was infuriatingly off. I'd figured out that not only did he tell mom and our extended family a version of the story in which Lola was all too violent with him when he jumped from behind a door to give her a little spook, but he left out the details that put him in any bad light. I started yelling again, calling him a liar, but he started crying and called me a liar who was just trying to lie for my girlfriend. At the sight of my brothers crying, my mom pleaded with us to stop. My aunt scrolling more on the screen. It felt like both a minute and forever that we were yelling in each other's faces about how the night went. How I felt he always used his tears to get his way. Him yelling at me about how ungrateful I always was, etc. Unfortunately, I forgot where we were and didn't keep the volume down at all, and sometime later there was a knock on the door. I didn't know who it could be. Some dumb part hoped that it was Lola, though I knew it wasn't. It was 2 officers answering to a noise complaint from one of the neighbors. Feeling stupid, I plainly explained that no one was hurt, and we were having a heated argument that no one was in danger. I did let them look around and talk to my mom and brother, but my aunt spoke up when it looked like they were just going to give us a warning. Actually, I think it's good that you're here. My nephew has something he'd like to report. She motioned to Ian, whose eyes looked between her and the officers quickly. My aunt still looked as angry when she first arrived, but she was glaring at Ian. You know, hypothetically, if someone touches or hits you without permission or justified reason, that's something you can and should report. Is there anything you want to say? There was silence, eyes moving to everyone around the room. My aunt didn't look encouraging in the report. It hit me that she was calling him out. I stared at him, his eyes were bulging. He looked as panicked as the other night when he was trying to get away from Lola. One of the officers asked if everything was all right, and like clockwork, Ian started bawling his eyes out. My mom asked him what was wrong. I told her she had to stop babying him. He's been lying to you guys. My aunt asked him again if he had anything to report. You were up in arms against this girl this morning. Where'd all that fire go? Did she hit you or not? It took a while for all of us to push him, but he finally admitted to the room that he didn't have anything to report because he didn't feel like she'd be rightfully prosecuted. His next story sounded closer to the one that I knew, where he admitted to knowing Lola had gone to sleep and wanted to scare her so that she'd wake up. I still don't believe this is his reason why he wanted her up. That he put on a mask. I asked if he knew that she had a phobia. He said that he knew that she found them creepy and that no, there was no one else in the room with them. He couldn't get any of her friends to agree to the prank, so he did it himself. He said that he started making sounds against the wall, the bed was against the wall, and then got close to screaming in her face. He said that she woke up and surprised him because he thought the stress and the panic would cause her to scream or hide, but she went for his throat instead. He described his beating to everyone in the room, some of which I saw had the officers look at each other, then back at him. That's when I pushed the door in. The door wasn't locked, I just panicked and didn't think to use the doorknob properly. I just threw my body at the door. And the rest of the story is what I was there for. I'm sure if the police weren't there, I would have hit him. I know I would have. My mom started crying even more when he said she was sleeping, a fact that changed his entire story. And my aunt chewed him out, everyone scolding him for his stupidity and asshole behavior. While the officers explained that it sounded like if what he said was true, Lola acted in self-defense, and that not only was what he did juvenile, but one of the officers asked my mom's permission to question him more about his behavior and was concerning, and they wanted to make sure he wasn't a danger to himself and others. My aunt and I told the cops he was 22 at the same time and adult, and they didn't need her permission. He looks a lot younger than he is. Upon hearing his age, one of the officers sat down with him and asked him to talk through his thought process, and the other officer explained to my mom and aunt that Lola could press charges given Ian's story. My aunt still looked pissed while my mom cried about being confused and over her baby. My mom literally looked at me and said that she didn't understand how her baby could do this. I already knew I was in deep BS with this family, but I realized that I couldn't grow in the earth that poisoned me, and I needed to get away if I was actually going to get better and stay better. My mom kept messing with my aunt and other uncle on the phone, crying over the drama, while I texted a friend of mine who lives across the city if I could stay with him. I was feeling overwhelmed with all of them and didn't want to be within a few minutes of the source of the problem. I also wanted to give myself space to think and understand with a clear head. I'm typing this between my breaks. My aunt saw me in my room doing this, but she didn't stop me. She only asked me if I'd spoken to Lola about this, and I told her I haven't yet, but I had plans to later on. She told me she was sorry for believing my brother without listening to any other account, and that she hopes Lola is okay. So then it was just me and the apartment. The cops left after taking a statement from my brother and I. My mom left with my brother still crying, my brother calling me in a hole, the world's worst brother, and my aunt gave me a hug apologizing again for how she and her sister acted and told me that I don't owe her anything, but that she'd like to know that Lola's okay. With everyone gone, I went to my friend's house, and I'll be there until further notice. He couldn't make it to the party, but he heard about it from multiple people. As far as Lola, yes, I did meet with her yesterday. As excited as I was to see her, I know that most of you were telling me she was going to break up with me, so I've been preparing for that. Whether I ended up single or not, I wanted to make sure that she was okay above all. I know I don't deserve her as a girlfriend, and I'd much rather she not be with me if it meant that she was safe. She brought a friend with her, and we all sat and talked. I showed them both the posts, and Lola has asked that I not share any more information about her until she feels ready herself. She is on for gaming and general scrolling fairly often, and let me know that if she came across this story about me having told her, she would have been pissed. She did, however, read a lot of the commenters worried about her and wanted to express to all of you that while she was upset and hurt and with mixed up emotions, she is overall okay. She doesn't like that I posted about her without at least giving her a heads up. But after I offered to take down the post, she only asked that I give her time and to leave her her personal life and opinions out of anything beyond what I've already said here until she says otherwise. In short, she did break up with me, and when I told her about the police telling us that she could press charges, her friend laughed and told me that they were more than aware. She thanked everyone for their concern and told me she really hopes we both learn from this. This section was approved by her. So yeah, unless I'm forgetting something, that's all I have or can give for right now. My mom has been calling and texting me telling me that this whole ordeal has made Ian and her a wreck, and she can't believe I'd let a girl do this to us. I blocked my brother right now right after he left my apartment. I just blocked her. My aunt has let me know that she'll talk to her, but I don't know how that's gonna go. I understand that it isn't what everybody wants, but none of this is anything I wanted either. To everyone who has nothing but bad things to say about me, I get it. I'm in a hole. I appreciate any and all advice that I've been given. I'm going to be taking a break from not only the BS in my life, but this stuff. I know that I have a lot of growing to do, and I can't do that in this environment. Thank you again to everyone. Edit. This sub has a 7-day waiting period, therefore, this has not been posted here before. However, it has probably been posted to a different sub in the last week. Like I said, I found the original post on Twitter.